guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're over on the YouTube account and we're just going to do a quick little guide when it comes to engraving on heroes, kind of what heroes are the top priority. I'm not going to make a priority list for every single hero, but we're going to go ahead and cover the top ones, with number one, guys, being Mishka. Now, Mishka, when it comes to the engraving, specifically the E60 engraving, she is a game changer. This is a game changer when it comes to building out this hero, when it comes to unlocking all of her abilities. This all allied heroes receive healing and are shielded. Again, it is huge when it comes to this hero, guys. That is really unlocking the full priority of Mishka. But number one, if you're building out heroes, guys, is Lucretia. Now, the reason for Lucretia, the plus 30, the plus 60, you want to prioritize not only for the stat aspect, to work in high level deficiencies, you do have to push her much higher for not only the stats, but also the damage, the survivability aspect she is going to have. Now, for a majority of players, when you start getting into chapter 30, when you start getting into multi-teams, Lucretia can actually be your second team, which is kind of crazy to think. But Lucretia's signature item allows her to amplify her damage when heroes die. So you don't even have to have the other four heroes in the team alive. If they can crowd control, if they can buff before they die, great. As long as they're buffing up Lucretia, but she is a hero that can carry all by herself. Big priority for a 60 engraving, same as Mishka, guys. Now, looking through some of the specific heroes in the factions, Scarlet, E60, absolutely, guys. Scarlet still has a ton of utility in a bunch of different game modes, especially if you do not have that awakened version of Belinda, because she is going to be the primary damage dealer in a majority of those team comps. Now, looking at Anasta and Kren, they are two other heroes that require really the 60 engraving. The reason for that is the stats. So when it comes to a hero like Kren, same as Scarlet, same as Raku, same as Oden, when it comes to sheer stats, the stats are the driving factor when it comes to the damage that these heroes are dealing. So again, it is super important, guys, to stack the stats on the damage dealing heroes, because it is going to have a game-changing difference. Now, the difference with Anasta is with the 60, this actually allows the Brawler's Protection to have a really big mitigation factor, which is the reason why players do build her up to that E60 engraving. Each stack reduces the amount of damage Anasta receives by 20%, and she recovers. This is why and how Anasta can actually survive within team comps. Now, looking at our Weilers, Raku, 60 on him is not super effective, but again, looking at the damage dealers, looking at the build, guys, Raku, you absolutely want to get the E60 because of the stats that they're going to possess. Now, Raku, again, is still used in a lot of different game modes. We're seeing him as a primary damage dealer in a lot of slots where a ton of players don't have the awakened heroes. Raku still does incredibly well. Same when you get to the Graveborn, guys. When you look at Oden, super dependent on the stats, and this actually amplifies the attack rating and the haste that Oden gets, which is the reason why players are building up Oden to that E60. And then, of course, guys, we would be remiss if we did not talk about Ainz. Even though he is showing a little bit less utility as the game goes on, still a super effective hero with the abilities, guys. Attack rating is increased by 7% per second, and defense rating goes up. That is right, guys. This buffs up himself, which is huge. You have a self-buffing, massive damage dealer. Again, I'm still seeing a lot of utility in different game modes. Now, when it comes to the awakened heroes, they are kind of a given. Belinda will work without the E60, but ultimately, guys, if you want her to crush damage, it is the E60. When you look at Brutus, the exact same, you want the E60. When you look at Solus, again, E60, not a huge requirement, but to unlock the rest of her stats, you will get her to a 60. Same with Baden, again, for that stats. The awakened version of Taylene, I wouldn't E60 right now, just for the simple fact that we've had a lot more heroes and we know a lot more are coming, which is the reason I would not do that. But of course, Matria requires that 60 engraving. Now, looking at some of our support heroes. So the support heroes, guys, not really quite the E60, but these are going to go to the 30. Two of the biggest heroes to get to that E30. Number one being Palmer, guys. The E30 on Palmer is huge. Every 1 second, it raises the attack rating. Stacks of Faith, super important, guys, to have Palmer with that E30, as well as Joan of Arc. We see the exact same with Joan of Arc, guys. Joan of Arc, the plus 30 on her. When allied heroes are behind the standard, the attack rating and defense rating are increased by 10% for 8 seconds. The effects stack up to 30% of the corresponding stats, which are the reason, in the big reason why we build this hero out to that plus 30 engraving. So again, those two heroes, a huge priority when it comes to the plus 30. Now, a couple honorable mentions in here, guys. Number one being Leonardo. And the big reason for these guys is the effectiveness of the insight. So when you're building out these heroes, right here is the big insight. The insight is what is produced within the engraving system itself. So when you look at Leonardo, the higher the insight, the less crowd control that he is going to suffer, which is the reason why between the insight and the tenacity, when you look at the game modes that they're being used in, the Cursed Realm, the Temporal Rift, places like that, you cannot have these heroes be crowd controlled because these are the heroes that actually do the crowd control. So again, building up these heroes, that is why I have them at a plus 30. This Resonance Cannon, I'm going to allow for some more crowd control, built-in formations with Raku, Leonardo, and also a lot of different formations that are coming. We see the exact same thing, guys, in formations with Queen, the exact same stats. We need to build up the insight and the tenacity. That way Queen doesn't get crowd controlled, and the crowd control that she has is effective. And I've noticed, honestly, a game-changing difference when it comes to no engraving to the E30 engraving on here, again, for the crowd control aspect. And the same rings true when it comes to Hodgkin. Hodgkin is a hero that I just did the plus 30 signature item. Not a huge requirement there, but the 30 engraving, not just the skill damage, guys, but again, when it comes to the crowd control that Hodgkin possesses, it is really that insight and the tenacity that we're building up. Because overall, based on gear, if you look at gear, the tier 3 boots will give you a little bit. Right there, we do get 5 tenacity, which again is pretty much the really basic bare line minimum when it comes to some of the builds in here. Again, the crowd control heroes need the tenacity, need the insight to either not get crowd controlled or make sure that the crowd control is going to be effective within all of the other game modes that they're being run. Now, the honorable mention in here, guys, one of the heroes that I am absolutely focusing on building is Rem. So Rem, very similar to Scarlet, Raku, Oden, Ainz, even looking at Kren, the E60 on there is really important for the fact of the damage mitigation, because if you've run Rem, even if you tried or utilized the trial version, she is a super heavy glass cannon. This, of course, is going to give her a big damage reduction factor, which is going to address some of the issues that she has with the survivability, which is the reason, again, I am building her up to that 60. I think I have her at 33 right now. So as we continue to get more of our cores right here, we're going to continue and we're going to build her up all the way to that 60. Similar with Mulan in that plus 30, guys, is really the crowd control aspect she possesses, making sure that this tenacity and insight that she is going to be able to land the crowd control within the formations. Now, one hero that you do not want to engrave, guys, that I do not recommend engraving at all is Thorin. And I wanted to just kind of point him out because I did engrave him. When the engraving system came out, I engraved Thorin. Literally, he was probably one of the absolute, if not the first hero that I did within AFK Arena. Finding out that it is not effective. Since then, we've had a couple resets, but there were other priorities with resetting the heroes, guys. You could do an E11 on Thorin, but again, there's not a huge reason. Of course, the 11 being, I believe, the HP, but you're looking over here at the physical pierce, the accuracy, and the crit, so you can actually do, you know, a couple pieces here, and some do the damage factor, so the attack factor in here, which again, I'm not going to build it up any higher, but a lot of players will do those factors to get the damage dealing, which again, I do not recommend engraving him by any means, guys. So, all right, so that'll do it for today's video. Again, just wanted to cover a couple of basic heroes to engrave, and I know a lot of players say, well, you know, when you're starting out early game, when you're starting to get progression, a lot of players also do talk about Daemon. I do not recommend engraving Daemon. I know he is a very effective carry super early, which it could help with some campaign formations, But again, when you're building out your wish list, when you're looking at Scarlet, when you're looking at Kren, when you're looking at Raku, when you're looking at Oden, even when you're looking at Grez, guys, Grez super effective in a ton of game modes. 60, of course, is going to be a big game changer for Grez as well. But again, early game, mid game, not really a huge priority, not one of the top priorities. You want to focus on more of the damage dealing aspect within the heroes to really start off that engraving. So, all right, guys, so that'll do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.